Hello and welcome to Lesson 4. This lecture file will be all about painting. Specifically, the following will be covered. First, the word painting will be defined and it will be followed by a few slides that contain basic points about painting. And then next, the types of subjects and painting styles will be discussed. Painting is the application of pigments to a support or surface that establishes an image, design, or decoration. In art, the term painting describes both the act and the result or the output. Most painting is created with pigment in liquid form and applied with a brush. But there are, of course, exemptions to this. For example, in the Navajo tribe, sand painting and in Tibet, mandala painting, in those two types of outputs or paintings, they use instead powdered pigments instead of liquid pigments or liquid paints. Painting as a medium has survived for thousands of years and is, along with drawing and sculpture, one of the oldest creative media. It is used in some form by cultures around the world. Painting media are extremely versatile because they can be applied to many different supports. Okay, again, surfaces are called supports, including paper, wood, canvas, plaster, clay, and concrete. Because paint is usually applied in a liquid or semi-liquid state, it has this ability to soak into porous or absorbent material, which can, over time, of course, weaken and damage the support or the surface. In order to prevent this, usually a support is covered with a so-called ground. Okay? A ground is a mixture of binder and a powdered material, oftentimes a chalk, that when dry creates a non-absorbent or porous layer between the surface or the support and the painted surface. Okay, so these are terms that you should remember. Surfaces are called support, while the cover, that is a mixture of a binder and a powder or a chalk, is called a ground. Common painting media include oil, acrylic, watercolor, and tempera. Oil paints are the most expensive, and it is also very permanent. Many famous masterpieces dating from the Renaissance onward are painted in oils. They are also best to use for demonstrating great detail and the contrast between light and dark. However, oil takes a very long time to dry, between 6 months to a whole year. In addition, oil must be removed from brushes using turpentine, and it is very easy to stain your clothing and other surfaces. In addition, most oil paint thinners and turpentines are toxic and not particularly safe for prolonged contact. Next, acrylics, like oil, are well suited for detail, but it is also very easy to use, so they are best for beginners. Acrylics are also water-based, which means you won't be needing turpentines or thinners, as they can be cleaned from brushes using, of course, water, and it's very easy to remove them from brushes. Acrylic paint dries very quickly as well, and it is not, however, it is not easily blended, unlike oils. Acrylics are also not very lasting, unlike oil. They have only existed for about 50 years. Acrylics can contain various toxins within their pigments as well. The third type is watercolor. It is generally the least expensive of the three paints, or of the other paints. It offers nice color saturation and dries quickly. However, though it is simple in theory, the techniques in painting using watercolor, these techniques can be difficult to master. It takes a special talent and lots of practice. It is more difficult to cover a mistake when you use watercolor. Lastly, we have tempera or tempera. It is also called egg tempera, and it is a method of painting that replaced oil painting in the past. Tempera employs a blend of water, egg yolks, or whole eggs. So from time to time or occasionally, a little glue, honey, or milk are also added. A layer of ground is usually applied to a surface before painting tempera paint or before using tempera paint. Unlike oil paint, tempera cannot be applied too thickly, and so it lacks the deep coloration of oils. But tempera paintings can be very long, unlike oil paints, which tend to darken or lose color with age. Tempera dries rapidly, and when dry, it produces a smooth, matte finish. One disadvantage of using tempera paint is that it is time consuming because you have to apply one at a time thin layers in order to achieve your desired hue or desired shade. Okay, and another thing is that tempera is not vegan, so you're using animal byproducts. Okay, so there are many acrylic and oil uh, paints brands which are cruelty-free. So just like makeup, it would be best if we would use products for art which are cruelty-free. So if you would choose among these painting media, I would recommend those which would not require you to use animal products or animal byproducts. And now let's move on to the types of painting according to subjects. Okay, the first type is a portrait. A portrait is an image of a person or an animal. Besides showing what someone looks like, a portrait often captures a mood or personality. Next, we have real-life type of painting. Real-life paintings capture scenes of life in action. Examples are a busy street, a beach party, a dinner gathering, or any place where living goes on. Third, a still life painting shows objects such as flowers, food, or musical instruments. In short, things that do not move, inanimate things, which may be placed on a surface. Okay? A still life painting reveals an artist's skill in painting shapes, light, and shadow. Next, a landscape painting is an outdoor scene. A landscape artist uses paint to create not only land, water, and clouds, but also wind and sunlight or moonlight. So if you would create a landscape painting, it has to be done, of course, outside. But because of the restrictions that we have these days, because of the pandemic, it would be best if you could, for example, simply take a picture of nature or a picture of a place where nature is abundant only if you would have the opportunity to visit a new place. If your, for example, surroundings in your village is appealing din naman, you may also take a picture of a certain spot, for example, in your clubhouse. Okay, and then use the photo as reference for your landscape painting. Don't go too far, okay? So we still have restrictions because of the pandemic. The last type of painting, according to subject, is a religious painting. A religious painting, of course, shares a religious message. It might portray a sacred story or express an artist's faith. However, it may also be based on mythology and lore. If you are a Christian, it wouldn't actually mean that you should be choosing a subject that is Christian for you to create a religious painting. Okay. For example, you are interested in the Buddhist tradition or the Buddhist religion, you may also make use of Siddhartha Gautama as subject for a religious painting. If you are interested, for example, in the practices of the Wiccans, you may also choose a subject from that particular belief and portray that subject into your religious painting. Okay, so it wouldn't have to be based on your religion. Okay, you may also depict or you may also paint a subject which is not actually a part of your faith. Next, let's move on to the painting styles. First, we have the abstraction style. When you use this style, then you create an abstract art or abstract painting. Abstraction is the reduction or simplification of scenes or figures by omitting realistic detail. Take note of the words reduction, simplification, and omitting. So in short, you remove, you reduce details, and then you depict the subject by means of, for example, its primary colors without adding the little details. Okay, a picture imagery may be so abstract that it becomes non-objective. Take a look at the example. That is actually an abstract painting of a bamboo forest. Can you see the bamboo forest from the abstract painting? So it's very reduced, it's very simplified, it looks non-objective, but it actually is. The subject actually is a bamboo forest. You may look for examples online for you to understand how abstraction works. So again, take note of the words reduction, simplification, omission. Next style, we have Art Nouveau. Do you still remember this from the lecture about the history of Western art? Okay, Art Nouveau. It's named after an art movement. This style is decorative. When you use this style in painting, you utilize flowing lines and organic forms. Lines taking the form of flowers, stalks and buds, vine tendrils, insect wings, and other delicate and curling natural objects. Can you see those from the example painting? Okay, the usual subjects of an Art Nouveau painting are portraits or humans and animals and landscapes. The next painting style is Impressionism, and it is from the art movement of the same name. Impressionism is associated with French artist Claude Monet. This particular painting style makes use of lively and small, thin, visible brush strokes. Bright colors are also employed. And instead of painting inside a studio, an artist does the painting outside in plein air in order to as well capture the effects of sunlight on the subject of the painting. Okay, the usual subjects are landscapes and real life scenes. The next artistic style is Post-impressionism. It is also an art movement. The well-known post-impressionist painters were people who got inspired by the impressionism movement. These people do not have one particular style in painting, but they share these common characteristics: vivid colors, thick brushstrokes, distorted forms, and unnatural color schemes. Their paintings are also emotionally charged, and their paintings depict depict the emotional and psychological states of their creators. The usual subject is a real-life scene. Post-impressionist paintings are often confused with expressionism. For example, Vincent van Gogh is sometimes labeled as an expressionist artist, but in reality, he is an he is a post-impressionist artist. Expressionists got inspired by Van Gogh's depiction of his subjects by means of showing through his paintings as well his psychological and emotional states. Okay, that's why sometimes he is confused with the expressionism movement, but he is a post-impressionist artist. Okay, so what's the difference between post-impressionism and expressionism? We will see on the next slide. Expressionism, just like post-impressionism, is an artistic style from an artistic period. Okay, it is characterized by distortion and exaggeration in order to create an emotional effect. So paintings using this particular style, just like in the post-impressionist period, are emotionally charged as well. But the difference is that expressionist paintings are distorted, they are exaggerated in order to show the darker side, okay, the darker side of human nature. So expressionist paintings are distorted, they are exaggerated and emotional, and the purpose is to show the darker side of human nature. So you can see the difference between this painting by Edward Munch and Vincent van Gogh. Okay, the painting here has exaggerated and violent colors that show the anxiety of the subject of the painting. Okay, and it doesn't look as appealing as Vincent van Gogh's work. Okay, so that's it. That's the difference between expressionism and post-impressionism. Vincent van Gogh is under the post-impressionism movement, not expressionism. Okay, we are sometimes confused between the two because paintings or artworks under both periods are emotionally charged. Expressionism, though, is more inclined into showing the darker side of the human psyche. The next style is Cubism. It is non-objective and analytical. So, in a Cubist painting, three-dimensional subjects are fragmented and are painted from several different points of view simultaneously. There are two types of Cubism. We have analytical and synthetic. An analytical Cubist painting uses geometrical forms, and it's simple, dark, and monochromatic. Synthetic Cubism is more energetic. Okay, brighter colors are used, and sometimes different materials are added that forms a collage-like output. So if you would choose this particular style, it's best to choose between analytical and synthetic. The next art movement or artistic style is Surrealism. It combines the conscious and unconscious aspects of experience in order to depict the world of dream and fantasy. It is irrational. Okay, surrealistic art is characterized by dreamlike visuals, okay, and the use of symbolism and collage images. The last artistic style, or rather artistic technique, painting technique, is Pointillism. It is also known as chromoluminarism, and it was developed by George Schra. Do you still remember him from the lecture, from the previous lecture? I hope that you still remember him. Okay. This technique employs the use of a bunch of tiny dots in order to make a picture. Sometimes, small strokes that are akin to dots are applied to a surface so that from a distance, they visually blend together in order to make or form an image. If you want to know more about the points mentioned in this lecture, you may visit these websites. This is the end of Lesson 4.